He died in 1984, 8 years after Anneliese. Father Arnold Renz continued his priestly work. He died in 2008, still convinced that Anneliese's suffering had spiritual significance. Yusuf and Anneliese Michel largely avoided the public eye after the trial. Yusuf died in 1999. Anna was still alive in 2006, and in a rare interview, she said she had no regrets, stating, "God told us to exorcise my daughter's demons. I don't regret her death." So in the aftermath of all this, in 1999, nearly 25 years after Anneliese's death, the Vatican released a revised Rite of Exorcism, which was the first major update since 1614, nearly 400 years. And among the changes to the Rite of Exorcism, priests must rule out mental illness before approving an exorcism. The new manual warns against attributing all strange behavior to demonic causes, and it places less emphasis on interrogating demons and more on prayers of deliverance. These reforms reflected concerns that older practices might reinforce delusional beliefs rather than alleviate them. And while the Vatican never cited the Anneliese Michel case directly, it does seem, due to if you look at the timing and the content of the reforms, it does seem to have been a direct influence on the changes. To Anneliese's family and to many modern visitors to her grave, she is regarded as a martyr. They view her as a soul who suffered for others, some even comparing her to Joan of Arc. At least one photograph appears to show a puncture wound on the top of Anneliese's foot. Witnesses also described marks on her wrists, her arms, her face. And of course, in Catholic tradition, wounds like this, mirroring those of Christ's crucifixion, are known as stigmata. Typical stigmata locations include the hands, the feet, and the side, reflecting Christ's wounds. And the Catholic Church has strict criteria for recognizing true stigmata. The wounds must appear without natural cause, they must persist over time, and they must not be self-inflicted. Many medical and religious experts believe that Anneliese likely caused these marks herself as a result of self-injury, possibly during some dissociative states or during acts of penance. Regardless, to devotees, Anneliese doesn't need official Vatican recognition. The belief that she bled like Christ and endured pain on behalf of others has elevated her to the status of an unofficial saint or martyr among followers. So back to the movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. 2005, nearly 30 years after Anneliese Michel's death. This was the first major cinematic retelling of the case. It was directed by Scott Derrickson, who is now known for Sinister and Doctor Strange and The Black Phone. Among the differences between the film and the real case, the real events occurred in a rural, devout farming community in West Germany during the 1970s. The film relocates this to America, modern-day America, setting it in an unnamed city. Anneliese Michel becomes Emily Rose, but her character is very similar, except she's very American in this version, no longer distinctly Catholic and no longer Bavarian. In reality, Anneliese underwent 67 exorcisms over 10 months, with symptoms gradually developing over several years. The film condenses this timeline, showing it as rapidly escalating and more overtly dramatic. The recurring 3 a.m. motif in the film is a fictional addition created for the film. This had nothing to do with the real Anneliese Michel case. In reality, there were 2 priests. The case involved 2 priests and Anneliese's parents. The film reduces this to 1 priest, Father Moore, and removes the parents entirely from the narrative. Now, here's where I have a problem with the film. The story focuses primarily on Father Moore's trial, his moral struggle, and really, this should be Anneliese Michel's story, or Emily Rose's story, but she becomes a secondary character in her own story. And the events that they are discussing in the film have occurred in the past. We already know what happened to Emily Rose. There's very little at stake. There are moments where they inject a contrived supernatural element that threatens Laura Linney's character. It feels like it's only there, so we are reminded we are in a horror film. And again, nowhere near as interesting as what actually happened. As even the fictional version of Emily Rose, it's nowhere near as interesting as the story told in flashback. So I view this as a missed opportunity. Now, interestingly, Anna Michel, Anneliese's mother, was still alive when the film premiered in 2005. She refused to watch it. She told a journalist, "I don't want to see the film, and I don't know anything about it." I mean, can you imagine what that must have felt like? Your personal torment being played out in public like that, and then 30 years later, someone makes a film for entertainment based on it. At least they changed the name, but it was pretty clear it was based on Anneliese Michel. And in fact, the soundtrack, the final track on the soundtrack, the score album, it says for Anneliese Michel. That's the name of the track. So the movie, it's a good effort, but I think it's fundamentally flawed from conception. It's worth a watch. It features strong performances. I'm always a fan of Laura Linney in just about anything she does. Tom Wilkinson's always great. And the young woman who plays Emily Rose, Jennifer Carpenter, is fantastic. But its fatal flaw is that it shifts the focus away from the real story, the real tragedy at the heart of this story. Ultimately, who cares about this made-up Laura Linney character? Who cares about this made-up Tom Wilkinson character? We want to know what happened to Emily. We want to know her better. We want to feel something when she suffers. We want to believe there's a hope that she'll come out of this okay, but we get none of that. The real story of Anneliese Michel remains much more tragic and complex and haunting than the fictionalized version. She believed she was sacrificing herself for others' salvation. Those around her believed they were saving her soul. A dual tragedy that no courtroom debate or cinematic framing can fully reconcile. So just one last thought about Anneliese Michel. She would have experienced the worst of her symptoms of whatever it was she was suffering from through 1975 into 1976, into the middle of 1976. The movie The Exorcist came out in 1973 in the United States. It opened in September 1974 in West Germany to huge crowds, sold out screenings. It was a big deal there, just like it was here. The Catholic Church in Germany, especially in Bavaria and Rhineland regions, condemned the film's release, calling it a blasphemous temptation, that's a quote, and warning parishioners against watching it. Religious periodicals ran editorials about the film's spiritual danger. And all of this backlash, of course, boosted attendance. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm not suggesting that Anneliese saw the movie, but I am suggesting she was very much aware of it. I mean, her family didn't seem like the type particularly engaged with popular culture, but this was everywhere. This was definitely in the air. And remember, she did go away to school for a while, so she was around other people her own age. So she would have heard it from her church. She would have heard it from her family. If she talked to anybody about what she was experiencing while she was in school, somebody would have made the connection to the film, to The Exorcist. I'm just saying it had to have been somewhere in her sphere of influences. In no way am I blaming the movie, by the way. I'm just thinking this maybe adds another dimension to her experience. Anyway, that's just a thought. If you're interested in learning more about the exorcism of Anneliese Michel, I can recommend the book, The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel by Felicitas D. Goodman. I think it's still in print, but if it's not, it is easily available on the used book market. And one more thing, really the last thing. In putting this episode together, I discovered there's an alternative film representation of the story of Anneliese Michel, and it's called Requiem. It's a German film. It came out in 2006, so it would have been made roughly around the same time as Emily Rose. It takes a very different approach, much less mainstream Hollywood, much more drama. Actually, very similar to what I was thinking Exorcism of Emily Rose should have been. I haven't seen it yet, but it seems it's much more drama. There's no